What you're about to witness will leave you absolutely speechless. A family's baby monitor captured something so extraordinary, so unbelievable, that even the parents had to watch it 3 times before accepting what really happened. This isn't fiction. This isn't exaggerated. This is exactly what occurred when a blue-and-gold macaw named Apollo was left alone with 8-month-old Emma for just 7 minutes. But before we reveal what happened, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to our channel so you never miss incredible stories like this one. It was a Thursday afternoon in suburban Portland, Oregon. Sarah Mitchell had just put her daughter Emma down for an afternoon nap. The house was quiet, peaceful. Sarah's husband, Tom, was at work, and she finally had a moment to catch up on laundry. Their 3-year-old macaw, Apollo, was in his large cage in the corner of the nursery, where he'd been since they brought Emma home from the hospital. The two had coexisted peacefully for months, with Apollo seemingly fascinated by the newest family member.
Sarah had installed a state-of-the-art baby monitor with continuous recording after Emma was born. It wasn't paranoia, just the natural concern of a first-time mother. She could check on Emma from anywhere in the house using her phone. As she sorted through a basket of tiny onesies in the laundry room, she glanced at the monitor app. Emma was sleeping soundly, her little chest rising and falling rhythmically. Apollo sat quietly on his perch, preening his brilliant blue feathers. Everything was perfectly normal, or so Sarah thought. 15 minutes later, Sarah heard something unusual. Not a cry, not quite. It was a sound she'd never heard Emma make before, a sort of whimper, but different. Concerned, she grabbed her phone and opened the monitor app. What she saw made her heart skip a beat. Apollo's cage door was open, wide open, and the massive bird was no longer inside. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. She'd been certain she locked that cage. She always locked it, didn't she? Panic flooded through her as she dropped the laundry basket and ran toward the nursery. Her mind raced with terrifying possibilities. Parrots have powerful beaks. Apollo was gentle, but he was still a wild animal at heart. What if he hurt Emma? What if he saw her as a threat? What if those curious talons accidentally?
She couldn't finish the thought. Sarah took the stairs 2 at a time, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. The nursery was at the end of the hallway. That hallway had never seemed so long. Each step felt like it took forever. She could hear Apollo's familiar squawk now, followed by another one of those strange whimpering sounds from Emma. Sarah burst through the nursery door, prepared for the worst. But what she saw stopped her in her tracks. Apollo wasn't attacking Emma. He wasn't even near her crib in a threatening way. Instead, the magnificent bird was perched on the rail of Emma's crib, and Emma was awake, but she wasn't crying. She wasn't scared. Her little face was scrunched up, and she was making that whimpering sound again. Sarah suddenly realized what it was. Emma was about to cry, that pre-cry whimper that every parent learns to recognize, the one that comes right before the wailing starts. But here's where it gets unbelievable. Apollo leaned forward, tilted his head, and began to whistle. Not just any whistle. It was the lullaby that Sarah sang to Emma every single night. The same melody, the same rhythm, the same gentle tone. Apollo was singing Emma's lullaby. And Emma stopped whimpering, her wide blue eyes fixed on the colorful bird,
Her tiny mouth formed a perfect O of surprise and wonder. Sarah stood frozen in the doorway, her phone still clutched in her trembling hand. She couldn't believe what she was witnessing. She'd known Apollo could mimic sounds, of course. He repeated words, imitated the doorbell, and could recreate Tom's laugh perfectly. But this was different. This wasn't just mimicry. This was Apollo responding to Emma's distress with the one thing he'd learned would comfort her. But Apollo wasn't finished. When the lullaby ended and Emma started to whimper again, the bird did something even more remarkable. He carefully climbed down from the crib rail, using his beak and talons with the precision of a skilled acrobat. Sarah's instinct was to rush forward, to grab Emma, to get the bird away from her baby. But something made her stop, something in Apollo's body language. There was no aggression, no erratic movement. He was being incredibly deliberate, incredibly careful.
Before we continue our story, let's take just 5 seconds. If this story is touching your heart, please press the like button, subscribe to the channel, and stay with us because many more beautiful stories are coming. Thank you, my dear friend. Now, let us continue. Apollo made his way to Emma's playmat, which was folded and leaning against the wall near the crib. On top of it sat Emma's favorite toy, a soft musical elephant that played gentle sounds when you pressed its ear. Emma loved that elephant. She would calm down instantly whenever Sarah handed it to her, and Apollo knew this. The bird grabbed the elephant's ear with his beak, but gently, so gently. Then he half walked, half flew back up to the crib rail. Sarah held her breath. Her rational mind was screaming at her to intervene, but something deeper, something instinctual, told her to wait, to watch, to see what Apollo would do. The macaw positioned himself carefully on the crib rail and then did something that Sarah would have called impossible if she hadn't seen it with her own eyes. Apollo leaned into the crib and placed the elephant within Emma's reach. The baby's tiny fingers immediately grasped the soft toy, and her whimpering stopped entirely. She looked up at Apollo with an expression of pure delight. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. She fumbled with her phone, remembering the baby monitor. It had recorded everything. She had to see this again. She had to know it was real. Over the next few minutes, Sarah watched in amazement as Apollo stayed with Emma, occasionally bobbing his head and making soft clicking sounds. Emma giggled, that beautiful baby laugh that every parent lives for. She reached up toward Apollo, her small hand grasping at the air between them. Apollo lowered his head, allowing Emma's fingers to brush against his feathers, but never getting close enough that he could accidentally hurt her. It was the most tender, most careful interaction Sarah had ever witnessed between an animal and a baby. Apollo seemed to understand exactly how fragile Emma was. He adjusted his movements, softened his sounds, and maintained a perfect balance between engagement and caution. Sarah finally stepped into the room, moving slowly so as not to startle either Apollo or Emma. The bird looked up at her and let out a soft chirp, as if to say, "See, I've got this handled." Emma turned her head toward her mother and smiled, still clutching the elephant.
That evening, when Tom came home from work, Sarah showed him the footage from the baby monitor. They watched it together 3 times, then a 4th. Tom, a software engineer who prided himself on logical thinking and skepticism, kept shaking his head in disbelief. "There has to be an explanation," he kept saying. "Birds don't understand. They can't know." But the video didn't lie. Apollo had responded to Emma's distress. He'd opened his own cage, something they'd never seen him do before. He'd remembered the lullaby and the elephant. He'd acted with purpose, with care, with what could only be described as compassion. The Mitchells posted the footage online, hesitant at first, expecting skeptics and critics. Instead, the video went viral within 48 hours. Millions of people watched as Apollo performed his incredible act of care. Animal behaviorists weighed in, explaining that parrots are among the most intelligent birds on the planet, with cognitive abilities comparable to a 4-year-old human child. They form deep bonds, they learn patterns, and yes, they can demonstrate empathy.
But knowing the science didn't make it any less miraculous. Sarah never locked Apollo's cage during Emma's nap times after that day. The bird had earned that trust, and he never violated it. Over the months that followed, Apollo became Emma's unofficial guardian. Whenever she cried, he would respond before Sarah even made it to the nursery. Sometimes with a lullaby, sometimes with funny sounds that made Emma laugh, and sometimes just with his presence, perched nearby, watching over her with those intelligent golden eyes. By Emma's first birthday, Emma and Apollo had formed a bond that defied simple explanation. She would call out, "Polo, Polo," when she saw him, her toddler version of his name, and Apollo would respond with an excited squawk and a bob of his head, clearly recognizing that this was his name in Emma's language. The Mitchells often reflected on how close they came to never knowing about Apollo's remarkable moment. If Sarah hadn't installed that baby monitor, if she hadn't thought to check the footage, they would have simply found Apollo out of his cage and Emma happily playing with her elephant. They might have scolded the bird, locked his cage tighter, and never known the truth about what happened that Thursday afternoon. But the camera was recording. And because of that, the world got to witness something truly extraordinary. A moment that reminds us that intelligence, empathy, and love aren't exclusively human traits. They exist throughout the animal kingdom, sometimes in the most unexpected ways, waiting for the right moment to reveal themselves. Apollo taught the Mitchell family something profound that day. He taught them that family isn't defined by species. It's defined by care, by protection, by showing up when someone you love needs you. Even if you have feathers and a beak, even if you can't speak in words, you can still say, "I'm here. You're not alone. I've got you." And that's a lesson worth remembering. And if this incredible story amazed you as much as it amazed us, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more unbelievable true stories. Drop a comment below and tell us about any amazing moments you've witnessed between animals and children. Have you ever seen something that you wouldn't have believed if it wasn't caught on camera? We'd love to hear your stories. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.